the idea that if you don't get the job that you want, that somehow you're going to die.
Right. Here you go.
Right?
Bingo.
And so what God would do is this is what God did with me. Sometimes he comes and he helps me to stare the thing in the face that I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
And says, so what does it mean to you, Greg, if that happens? What does that mean about your life? What is it that you think that can do to you if that happens?
Yeah.
Right? And then you confront it. Because so many times we have lies associated with what we think it means.
You bet.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's the lies we have associated with what it means that needs to be torn down. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, for me, I get up on stage, I feel uncomfortable, my mind goes blank, I can't articulate what I want to say, and I just feel like a fish flapping around out of water, like, what's going on? Right? You just feel discombobulated, you feel like you're just a ball of chaos going up, this disorder. That's how you feel. And see, I was afraid of that. But then God come and said, what if you are, Greg? What if all those things, what if all that is true?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean to you? You see, and now you start getting into the depths of your heart. Everyone will leave.
Mm-hmm.
No one will listen. No one will be here. What does that mean to you? How will Becky live? How will we survive? We left everything.
Yeah.
How can we survive if I'm a fish flapping out of water up there? My poor little wife. Yes, Greg can go live in a tent on the side of the road and eat berries and grass and be like John the Baptist. I might even eat some bugs. I mean, I certainly rant and rave like a mad person out in the wilderness, the one crying in the wilderness. But what about poor sweet little Becky? How will Becky live if you see, the thing that I was being confronted with was my fear was actually that we were going to die, so to speak, if we wanted to put it in its most basic terms. We were going to die if this thing was true. And so now I had to do everything I could to fix this thing that I saw was going to cause me to die. But then God come and ministered me to the place and said, even if that be true, do you think I can't care for your life? Do you think I'll forsake you? Do you think I'll leave, Greg? If everybody else leaves, do you think I'll leave? Do you think my arm's too short to overcome that? Do you think I need everybody to think you're a good preacher in order to provide for your life?
Yeah.
You see, what he confronted was the fear. There was a place in my heart where I was trusting in my ability still. And that's when you have fear, you know that you're identifying or you're trusting something in yourself or something in the world to be your source.
Right.
That's when you feel fear. Right? And so he comes and he ministers to that place. He reveals it. He shines his light on it. Right? And something magical happens when you shine light into the darkness. Guess what happens? The darkness has to leave.
Right.
The darkness doesn't stay when you turn on the lights.
Nope.
There's no darkness in here. You flip a switch. So God come and flip a switch. The darkness was dispelled from my heart, and I found myself resting in God's ability to take care of me, even should all this be true. Because I was busy trying to believe it's not true. I'm not like a fish flapping around.
Right.
It doesn't sound as bad as I think it is. I'm not as horrible as See, I was busy trying to be persuaded all was well by my own ability.
Right.
That wasn't helping.
Trying to justify yourself.
Yes, I was trying to be justified or strengthened on the inside by believing that what was coming out of me was good.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't possess the ability to save me. Right?
Right.
Because my ability doesn't possess the ability to save me.
Right.
And so I felt so bad for the people around me all the time trying to come and tell me that it was good and how good it was. And I'm trying, you don't understand. That can't help me now. Because
that can change. That's changing.
Right. That's not the rock.
That's right.
Right? And so it's like that's what happens when there's fear in our hearts. Right? And so it's like a beautiful thing. What God come and did to me was, man, and I was this close to shutting down the church because here I am preaching rest and I felt so much turmoil on the inside of myself. Thinking, how could I be preaching grace and rest when on the inside, every time I get up on stage, I feel like I'm going to die, man. I mean, I was this close to stopping it. And then, a prophet wrote me a little letter and said, every time I get up on stage, I actually am resting. Because my flesh wanted to save myself from that feeling of fear by shutting everything down. Because if I shut everything down, guess what? I don't have to get up on stage anymore.
Right.
Guess what if I don't have to get up on stage anymore? I don't feel that fear anymore. Glory to God. Right? And so it come and revealed to me that I was resting every time I got up on that stage. Then all of a sudden I got this revelation that God was with me and that God didn't need me to do good to provide for my life. He didn't need me to remember everything right to provide for my life. Yeah. He didn't need me to have great examples or be a poetic speaker. He didn't need any of that to be able to provide for my life. Now all of a sudden I felt the power of God with me in the face of my fear, bringing calmness to me. You're in my hands, Greg. Yeah. Right? Right. And he revealed how foolish the idea was that I need for people to like me as a preacher to survive. No, I don't. No, I don't. God will provide for me whether anybody likes me or not.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the part where you're resting.
Yeah. You're resting in God. And He'll bring forth rest in you. So many times when we feel pressed in on by a, how do I want to say this? There's little things that come and go, but sometimes there's things that have really come against our life from when we were little. That there's like an emotional muscle memory in our heart, right? That our heart's triggered. And it seems to be like it sticks more. Yeah. Like you know how some things come and go, but then sometimes there's that thing that seems like it just can't shake that freaking thing permanently. Right. That it comes and it always rears its ugly head, and you get frustrated. Yeah. What happens is you start to realize that even when your heart has that muscle memory or that trigger of that fear, God's with you in that place. And you begin feeling strong even when the fear comes. You begin realizing that feeling of fear doesn't mean you're being overcome. It doesn't mean that you're actually weak, because God's strength is your strength, not your strength. Right. And so the feeling of weakness doesn't make you feel like you're separated from God. Right? And what happens is you find yourself overcoming it. Right? God causing you to overcome. It's like when you go and work out. You get like a muscle memory. You know, the first time you go and work out, like you get real sore. But then after you do it for a while, you get a muscle memory. Yeah. Our hearts have like a muscle memory where if there's traumatic things that have come against our lives, where like we've experienced trauma in our life and lies come against us in those moments, our heart gets like a muscle memory where it engraves almost like a line or a memory in our heart. And every time our heart encounters something that's similar to that, it triggers it back to that same feeling of fear or pain that we had way back when. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then that feeling of fear or pain makes us feel like we're being overcome. It takes us back to that thing all over again. God comes and stands with us in that place and clothes upon us in that place of fearing, naked and afraid, feeling like we're overcome. He shows us that He's upholding our lives in the face of that. And then we find something where we begin to overcome it. Yeah. And we begin to get a new muscle memory. We begin to get a new memory in our muscle, a new trigger when we encounter that thing. We start to have a new thought on the inside of us when we encounter it, that it doesn't overcome me, but I'm overcoming it. We start finding an overcoming strength manifesting inside of us, right? And all that the lion.
You're the lion.
Right? The lion.
You're not the barking to lion.
Right? Listen, you think the lion doesn't feel its adrenaline rise up when things come against it? You think it doesn't have a feeling? Well, what happens in that lion when that happens?
Something rises up. That's so great.
Something rises up inside of it. Yeah. Right? And see, that's what God will do inside of us. But listen, all of us have experienced trauma in this world. And I tell people this all the time, but the most powerful way for a belief to get in someone's heart is through an elevated emotion, whether it be trauma or joy. It's the easiest time to take a belief in our hearts. And so many times when we're experiencing trauma in the world, the enemy is there trying to tell us a lie about what that trauma means. Because he wants to shape our life with fear and anxiety. And he knows that we're in this elevated place of emotion and our hearts are wide open. Your heart becomes wide open when it has an elevated emotion. Joy or trauma. And he's right there trying to put in a lie. Well, every single one of us has encountered trauma in this world.
Because at that time, the part of your brain that's activated is your survival part of your brain. So you are you're not thinking. Your thinking is unhooked, and you are right there in survival. So whatever suggestion comes,
You take it.
you take it.
Yep. You,
Trying to survive.
Yep.
Trying to stay alive.
you don't reason from it.
Right.
Yeah.
I was telling Cindy the other day that, we had dinner at the salad station. The owners have a 1 or 2 year old, 1 year old,
1 year old.
18 months, somewhere around there, who had 3 viruses. The poor kid couldn't eat, and he was in the hospital for over a week. Went home for a couple of days, and then ended up in Children's Hospital for another week. And I said, we should tell the mom that it's not her fault, and because it's just that point where that's the kind of thing where Satan will speak a lie,
Oh,
whisper
true.
into her heart, "You're at fault for your son
Yeah.
suffering," even though it's not. It was a virus that the poor kid had. I said, because just what you said.
Yeah.